So I get a phone call from my brother Evan. He says, Alec, your BMW just broke down on me in the middle of the road, dude. I need your help. I don't know what to do. And I'm just thinking, oh no, not right now. Mind you, he's currently borrowing this BMW because we have his Toyota Tundra torn down to the bare block. We removed the cylinder heads and we're doing head gaskets right now. So I asked him, what's it doing? And he said, I don't know, man. It just stalled. I tried to restart it, give it gas, and it's just dying on me. The screen on the dash says it's overheating, but the temperature gauge on the cluster is below halfway. And I told him, oh no, dude, that's oil temperature, not coolant temperature. So I said, pull it over to the side of the road. Do not drive it. I'm on my way. So I jumped in my BMW, I grabbed a tow hook, grabbed a scan tool, and headed down to him in the car. Once I got down there, first thing I did was I popped the hood and I started looking for signs of coolant leaks. I couldn't see anything anywhere. The engine was bone dry except for a small little drip coming from the seam on the expansion tank. So next I went in the car, I plugged in my scan tool, and there I found the issue. It was right there in the DME codes. So next, we let the car cool down a little bit. We moved it to a spot that would be good for a tow truck. And then I threw him in my BMW, took him back to my house, and gave him my Chevy Duramax diesel pickup truck so he could go on his way and continue work. I said, arrange a tow for me with AAA, get the car over to my house, I'll order some parts, I'll take care of it, you can borrow my truck for now. So here we are a few days later. I got the E90 towed back to the house, I got a bunch of parts to fix this thing sitting on the workbench over there, and in today's video, I'm gonna show you the exact DME code that caused this car to overheat, and I'm gonna show you the entire process to fix it. Now these E-chassis BMWs with the N-Series engine, the N51, N52, N54, N55, and I think the N20 all have electronic water pumps and electronic thermostats. And when they fail, they have a few symptoms that they always like to show. Let me show you the first one. You hear that cooling fan screaming? This thing is on overdrive. Let me show you the code that causes that. I got the E90 connected to ISTA, and here's our issue right here. DME, electrical coolant pump, speed deviation. Coolant pump speed, outside tolerance. Another water pump code we have is right here. DME, electric coolant pump cut off. Coolant pump switched off due to blockage. Now these are one of the few cars that will actually throw a code and a check engine light for a water pump issue. The nice thing is that it makes diagnosis very easy. The downside is that the water pump and the thermostat are not very cheap. Now, to be honest, I'm pretty grateful that it's looking like it's just a water pump and thermostat right now. The car seems to be running okay while it's cold, so I don't think we're gonna have any issues with head gaskets or any loss of compression. These N54 engines are pretty tough, especially when they're overheated. Now, another part that I did order for this job was an expansion tank. When I first opened the hood, I could see a little bit of coolant along the seam right here. Now, if you look at this 140 on top of the cap, that means that this expansion tank cap is rated to 1.4 bar. That is 20.3 psi. So the cooling system literally has to boil over so much to reach 20.3 psi before this thing will release and actually allow pressure to bypass. Which means when you get these things nuclear hot, all of these plastic components have to contain all that pressure. So I bet you after I do the water pump and thermostat, if I pressure test this thing to about 16, 17 psi, this expansion tank is gonna leak right where I saw that drop back here. That's exactly why when I ordered all these parts a few days ago, I ordered an electronic water pump, a new thermostat, a new bolt kit, an expansion tank cap, and a new expansion tank, in addition to a bottle of Xerox G48 coolant. Hello, puppy dog. You're all wet. Fall is here. Rainy season is here. Okay, time to get to work. First things first, let's pull this cap and we'll start evacuating this expansion tank so we don't make a mess all over my garage floor. Now honestly, I should have done this water pump replacement a long time ago when I had it out while I was doing the turbos. These water pumps and thermostats should be done as preventative maintenance about every 100K, so they don't leave you stranded on the side of the road like this one did to my brother. I just didn't have the money for it at that time. Also, if you want to look at any of the parts that I use for this video or any of the tools, it will all be in the description of this video. Before we go down below for the water pump and thermostat, I think we're going to remove the expansion tank. It might be helpful to get an angle down at some of those hose connections for the water pump and the T-stat. We're also going to go over here and pull the cooling fan. So let's do that next. Now this expansion tank hose is super fragile, and although I've replaced it, I still want to get it out of the way so we don't break it while I'm removing this electronic cooling fan. Next, I'm going to pull the connector for the cooling fan and pull this harness out of the clips and just flop it out of the way. Now there's one Torx screw over here in the corner that you need to remove. There's a little clip down here on the driver's side of the electronic cooling fan. There's also this little rubber grommet that this intercooler hose attaches onto. I like to take a pry bar and just pry that off of there so it's disconnected. Now, if I remember correctly, next we need to get underneath the vehicle. There's an automatic trans thermostat that bolts to the bottom of the cooling fan. So I'm gonna go down below and remove that Torx screw. I'm gonna use my new bend pack 2-post lift, put this thing up in the air a little bit. Now right here, there's a little T25. Pop that out, and now the trans cooler is loose from the electronic cooling fan. Now, just because I have this fancy lift doesn't mean that you can't do this at your home garage with the floor jack and jack stands. I've done this job many a times with the floor jack and jack stands. I've done turbos, I've done oil pans, I've dropped and removed the subframe on this very car with the floor jack and jack stands. So makes my life a little bit easier, but you guys can still tackle this job at your house too. Now that everything's disconnected, we should be able to get this cooling fan out. This cooling fan is one of my least favorites. This and the N63, I think, are just the worst cooling fan designs to get removed. It's just super tight spaces, but we can do it. You just gotta massage it and wiggle it out. I just like to wiggle left and right. And then you just gotta look down, right, and see where it's catching. Right now, that intercooler hose little grommet bracket is catching on the fan. So I'm just gonna take a pry bar as I lift up, try to lever it out of the way, tilt this fan forward to clear the front end. Just gotta massage it. There we go. Let's try to get a little bit more coolant pulled out if we can. Sometimes these reservoirs refill. Pretty decently dry right now. Start pulling the hardware for this thing. 2 10mm bolts. Disconnect these wastegate vacuum lines from these clips that attach to the expansion tank. And again, I'm removing this expansion tank because there's some tricky hoses that are really hard to reach from the bottom. But sometimes with a real long 1/4" extension, you can get an angle from up top. We're replacing it anyway, so I might as well remove it now. Now there's one more hose connection at the bottom, and then there's a plug that goes to the float sensor. So I'm just gonna take a pick tool, pop that hose up, and completely drop the clip. I have to find that. And before I pop this thing off, we might want to get a bucket underneath there. I think that would be a wise idea. And the worst part about servicing these N54 cooling systems is they don't really have a drain petcock for the radiator. If they do, I think it's buried underneath the intercooler. And so you kind of have to pop the hoses off and try to get a controlled drain like that one. See, we still got some coolant in there. It's gonna leak out of that hose for a minute, but that's okay. And then I think it's hitting the bucket for the most part. Pop our sensor off. Now our expansion tank is completely removed. And I think this thing is original. Now these things love to separate at these seams right here. Pretty sure this thing is original. And over time, as these things get heat cycled and they see a little bit of coolant pressure, they separate right there and sometimes literally explode. I think removal of the expansion tank is more helpful on the N51s and N52s, because on this N54, we just have turbo piping and the turbos are just super in the way. But when that's not there, you can really get access to the top of the thermostat and water pump from up above. Now with the expansion tank and the electric fan removed, pretty much all the rest of the work is gonna take place from down below. So let's get this thing up as high as we can to a comfortable working height. We'll start working on the water pump and T-stack. About as high as we're gonna get. What do you think, Sage? What do you think? Lots of room. Now it's not the easiest thing to see, but right here is the tip of our water pump, and right there is our thermostat. We have our lower hose connecting into the thermostat right there. We have another coolant hose there, and it's all sitting right here above the subframe. So I'm gonna drop this sway bar because the sway bar gets in the way a little bit. So I think I'm gonna work on that next. I might drop this power steering hose, flop that down and out of the way too. Just try to get a little bit of access. And I think with those two removed, we should have enough room to get everything disassembled and get it pulled out of there. Here's a look from the other side. Silver water pump body there. Big hose connection that goes from water pump to thermostat in the back, and a big plug that supplies power to the water pump. So all that stuff's gotta come out. We also have our plug for the thermostat, which is right there. And Sage is giving this thing a sniff-spection. Start with dropping the sway bar. Then we got some 16mm nuts for the sway bar links with a 17mm wrench to hold the stud on the backside. Dang, what did I tighten these with last time? Geez Louise. Also, just a warning, if you're doing this job yourself, it is messy. We're not even to the messy part yet, but you're gonna have coolant dripping on you the entire time. It sucks. Okay, sway bar out of the way. Next, I'm gonna pull this 10mm bolt that holds this power steering hose up here so I can just flop it out of the way. Give myself a little bit more room directly below the water pump. Tell you what though, oil pan looks dry. That's a win. We got probably the only dry 335i in the entire county. Hey, there's my clip. Big win. There's the clip off the expansion tank hose. All right, then with that bracket out of the way, we got a lot more room to get up there to the bottom of the pump. See if we can just fold this. That's pretty good. Now this next part sucks. There's no easy way around it. It just straight up sucks. We gotta drain the coolant from the system. Like I said, there's no drain petcock down here. So you literally have to pop these major hoses here off the water pump or pop this upper radiator hose and just try to have controlled chaos and catch all this coolant in a bucket. There's really no easy way to do it, but if you do it tactfully, it can be less sucky. So this is what I normally do. I loosen this hose clamp at the back of the water pump and I take a bucket, okay? And I take a big pry bar and I get that pry bar up there. Sometimes you can even just push on that hose, but I try to get a bite on that hose, break it free. Honestly, that's not bad. I'm half tempted to just let it leak out like that for a minute. All right, we got a good amount out. Let's see if I can pop this hose now without giving myself a German shower. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. I've said it before, I'll say it again, and I'm gonna say it till the day I die. If you're doing hose clamps on a BMW, a ratcheting screwdriver, a ratcheting nut driver with a Wobble 6mm socket. Get an arrangement, you get an assortment, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, quarter inch driver on a nut driver. It is the best for hose clamps. Throw a big long 1/4 inch extension on there. Screw screwdrivers, man. Screwdrivers suck. Use a nut driver with the Wobble socket. It's way better. You don't have to deal with a flat head slipping out of the hose clamp head. Just throw that 6 on there, rip that sucker off. Way better. Trust me, I know about this one. There should be some more coolant sitting in this T-stat side too, so let's try to do that one more time. Let's get this little hose out of there. Okay, we're getting there. Make a little progress. I gotta mop up this coolant. I gotta get a mop and a bucket. I got myself a little garage mop. A lot of this is water because it started raining today and this car was real wet when I brought it in. All right, this is definitely a headlamp style job, so let's do this water pump connector next. Just gonna pick that connector open and just push that out of the way. Let's do thermostat connector next. So oil covered. This thing used to be very leaky. Not anymore, but get that T-stat connector out of there. I think it's time for us to work on the top now. We need to do the lower radiator hose and this coolant pipe here connects into the T-stat too. Let's do that next. Okay, so for reference, that's crank pulley, water pump, lower hose, plastic coolant pipe that ties into the thermostat. I'm blinding myself, but hopefully you guys can see well. Take a pick tool, try to pop this lower radiator hose coolant connector out. Now for this one, I like to take a pry bar, leave her off right here on the subframe. Just try to broke that corner a little bit. That's okay. I told you, dumping the coolant on this job sucks. There's just no good way to do it. Pop that lower out of its clip. We can sort of push that up and out of the way. Now we'll work on this other coolant hose. Pop that up. And then again, power bar up there. Okay, that one's DC'd and that's out of the way. Now there's another hose for the water pump. And I gave myself quite a tough angle for it when I took this water pump out and put it back in when I was doing the turbos. So I'm gonna reach it with a big long 1/4 inch extension and my 6mm wobble socket like I was telling you guys about. That's why these are the GOAT, because here I am 2 feet away and I'm ripping out a hose clamp at a tough angle. I'm telling you guys, it's goated. That hose clamp is super loose. And it's kind of like this hard, big metal pipe that ties into the top corner of the water pump. And it comes off the side of the block below the turbos. And so when we pull the water pump out, we can sort of just pop it out of that hose. So that won't be an issue. As far as that last hose to the thermostat goes, I can kind of see it. Let's see if I can show you guys it. She's buried. See it? Right there. That's the hose clamp I gotta get. I might be able to get it with my wobble socket because wobble sockets are just that goated. And if I do get this at that angle, you guys have to buy some. Oh, look at that. You guys need to buy some wobble sockets. Good luck getting a flathead screwdriver up there. You won't. That means every hose connection on this water pump and thermostat is now loose. Now the thermostat will come out with the water pump. Now we need to get the hardware out. There's an E10 up there and 2 E10s down here, and then 2 10mm head bolts that mount the thermostat to the water pump. I think we can take it out in one complete assembly. I usually do it in 2. Now I forget if it's an E10 or an E12. I think they're E12s. There's one up here. Wobble socket really helps. The original hardware as well are one-time use aluminum stretch bolts. And the replacements I got with the kit from FCP Euro are steel. So you don't have to worry about angle torquing and doing Newton meters. Just snug them up. Oh. All right, let's see if we can wiggle this pompa de agua out of here. We gotta break it seal loose on this big hose. There's 2 hoses that are gonna be holding us up. One on the T-stat. You know, I'm gonna pull the 10s so we can do water pump and then T-stat. There's the water pump. Here comes the thermostat. And here's that problem hose with that really tough angle on it. We did it. We got it out. Based off how easy that came out with that order, we should do thermostat first and then water pump afterwards. Also, we should angle this hose clamp so it faces down. Yes. Very good access to that front bank 1 turbo right there. Luckily, all of the lines going to it look dry. I don't see any leaks up there, which is good. Bank 2 looks dry from what I can see as well. Before I continue with the installation, this water pump impeller feels completely seized up. I want to see if I can split this case. Let's investigate. Can't tell you I've ever taken one of these apart. There's straight up oil in that screw from the old oil pan leak and turbo leak. There's some stuff holding it up, but it doesn't matter if I break it. I just want to see what the inside looks like. Oh, I can spin it now, barely. Come on, open up, little buddy. I want to see your insides. So there's our motor. That motor spins the impeller. Some connections on the back. A little circuit board in there. Yeah, there's a lot of technology in this little pump. I wonder why it costs so much money. New parts. New Waller thermostat. Cha-boom, baby. Looks good. New Ina water pump. Cha-boom. Throw away these old aluminum bolts. You know, although these water pumps do fail, one thing I gotta say is they never leak. Now I'm gonna do this thermostat first. It's always good just to use these 2 bolt holes as your reference. You really wanna get this hose with this tough to reach hose clamp. That's your #1 priority, getting it in the right angle. You can sort of tighten it and then tuck it up. Okay, so this is gonna go like that. So this hose goes on. I'm gonna flip this hose clamp. I wanna use the ultrasonic parts cleaner from John, but I don't have it heated up. And what I would use it for though is cleaning up all these hose clamps. Make them look nice. Okay, that should be a good enough angle, I think, for that hose. These nut drivers, again, are great for torquing hose clamps without going too tight. If you use a 1/4 inch ratchet, it's easy to over torque them and strip them out. Okay, that's up there. That orientation looks pretty perfect. Okay, and then this hose clamp goes here on that big water pump hose. Now it's time to put the water pump up. And the water pump's gonna go up like that. I think we can even pre-plug in this thermostat. Come on, hose. Dude, I hate coolant dripping on me. Now we just need to get one of these water pump bolts started and everything will sort of fall into place. That looks good, and then that rear difficult hose is buttoned up. Got this main hose clamp that I want to focus on now, the one we sort of have to massage the water pump into. It's fully seated, it looks great. I'm doing the best I can for camera angles, guys, but this job is just, camera angles are really tough. It's a very tight job. I got to get all up in here, and I can't get in here if the camera's in the way. But hopefully I'm doing a good job of showing you guys. Okay, that hose clamp is nice and bitchin'. And that hose is dialed there. Kind of want to rotate that clamp because it's almost touching that hose. I would hate to do all this work and have this hose clamp rub a hole in this coolant hose. It's nice to think about the next guy, right? Who's gonna have to go in here next? What type of access will he have to these hose clamps? In case you mess something up, how easy is it gonna be to access the hose clamps if you gotta go back in for turbos or whatever? Now we do this big coolant hose crossover from thermostat to water pump. Nice. Try to clean up some of this grease and grime off there. I think this is like a 4-hour job book time, so maybe 4 hours for water pump and thermostat. So now you have a good idea as to why. It's not easy. I'd much rather do an M54 water pump and thermostat than a N54. Okay, now we got to do our connections up front, like this guy and our lower hose. Yeah. All right, I did a little catching up with my brother and put this power steering hose back up. I think while I'm down here, to keep me from going up and down, up and down, and up and down, I'm gonna put the sway bar back on, and then we'll go back up. Coolant fan, electric fan, put the auto trans thermostat back in, knock out the expansion tank, fill this thing up, pressure test it. Let's go. Okay, I think that's everything for the bottom. Let's go back up top. Okay, I'm gonna lube up this expansion tank. Little sill glide on the bottom connection, top connection. We need to reinstall our clip back onto this hose. Sage, there she is. What's up? You're all wet. You're all wet. You're all wet. You're all wet. This cooling fan was missing a screw, so I want to try to get one in there. Nice. Last screw I need to do is go down below and put in for the trans thermostat. And that is our last screw. And then we will fill, pressure test, and then bleed the cooling system. Okay. All right, I got a little trickle charger on the battery because we're gonna need all the juice we can get for the bleed procedure. I need to get like a proper battery charger for coding, programming, stuff like that. What we're gonna do next is we're gonna pull this bleed screw. I also wanna pop out this O-ring so I don't lose it. Throw that back onto the bleed screw. I got a ½ gallon of coolant here that's pre-mixed. I'm gonna throw this in, use it up. We're gonna fill this cooling system until we get a steady trickle out of that bleed screw. I better put my drain pan back underneath too. Now that I got an empty jug, now we got 2 jugs, half full. I'm gonna top these up with some water. Now we continue with our initial fill. Bleed screw goes back down. Snug it, but don't over torque it. It's plastic on plastic. Now we bust out the cooling system pressure tester, orange cap. And I'm gonna pressure test this to, let's do 16, 17 PSI. All right, we're at 17 PSI. Looks to be really strong so far. Gonna let that marinate while I feed this puppy dog and eat a little snack. Then I'll come out and do the bleed procedure and we are done. And before I go inside and forget, I'm also going to reattach this little clip onto our new expansion tank so our vacuum line stays safely tucked out of the way there. Okay, I'm back and snacked. Cooling system pressure looks great. It dropped like 1/4 of a PSI, but that's totally fine. Let's release pressure. Pop the adapter. Next, let's do the bleed procedure. I like to put the cap down because this water pump will spray out of this overflow hose and it'll hit this stick and it'll spray all over and make a mess. So throw it on loose. We have the battery tender on there, so it should be helping support things a little bit. Let's do the bleed procedure cheat code. And another helpful tidbit when you do this, take a pocket screwdriver, click the lock over on the door. It'll simulate the door being shut, because if you open the door or close the door, it will disrupt the bleed procedure. Key in ignition, ignition on, engine off. I forget what step isn't necessary. I'm just gonna do them all. Defrost, max heat, power level 1, foot to the floor, hold for like 10 seconds. There it goes, it kicked on, I can hear it. Turn off the headlights to save the battery. Make sure radio's turned off to save battery too. There we go, we're squirting. Drop that back down. Let it sit for a while. All right, it's been about 10 minutes. The pump is done pumping. The fluid level's a touch high for my personal taste. I don't like the coolant dipstick maxed out. I like it right about where I'm pushing it down to. I'll show you guys. If it's all the way up, then it's maxed. I like to have it to where that bottom dot is like flush with the top. That's perfect. Perfect. Let's fire this puppy up, open up the garage door, and then we got to plug into ISTA and clear all the faults. She sounds pretty good. We're gonna do a complete identification through reading out vehicle data on ISTA. All right, and then for fault memory, I haven't deleted anything yet. Catalytic converter conversion 2, both those cats honestly need to be replaced. Fuel pump plausibility, that thing just always hangs around. Electronic cool pump speed deviation, cutoff, and then run flat detectors, fog lights, because there's LEDs I think in there. We still have a lot more work to do to the rest of the car. We need to do some work on the adaptive headlights as well as run flat detectors, get all that up to par so we can get rid of those stupid annoying warnings. But let's clear out faults. Switch off ignition. And we are back in business with just some run flat indicators, FRM, and fog lights. We'll tackle those another day. Close out operation. Let's get a sound check from the mic on the license plate. I've said it before, but I will say it again. This rear end with these dual tailpipes is one of the sexiest vehicles I have ever seen, especially with this steamy exhaust coming out. It is such a badass looking rear end, especially when we get some crisp white license plate lights. Man, that just looks so good. Now it's probably gonna be way too dark for you guys to see anything, but let's take this thing on a quick hot lap. We're not done with any job until we road test it. You know the rules. Let's bang some gears, huh? I miss driving this car. Let's go, we're back, baby. Oh, this thing rips. This BMW rips. Little third gear highway pole. God, I love this car. This M54 engine just is a ripper. Let's go. Back in business. Continental, we need to put some fresh tires on this thing. One of them's got a plug. If we're gonna be doing pulls, we need some fresh rubbers. I missed this car. I didn't know I missed it until I drove it. I missed this car. Now, if y'all are new here, my name is Alec, and this is Day Off DIY. I teach BMW owners how to fix their own cars. Actually, I'm restoring this BMW right now, and when I'm done, I'm going to be giving it away to a lucky winner for completely free. And I'm gonna hand deliver it to you in person too. I also work on other stuff too, whatever breaks or whatever I need to work on. Toyotas, Chevys, BMWs, home repair, fence repair, all types of stuff. So if you enjoyed today's video, I would love it if you would subscribe. And if you want to watch the giveaway series and have a chance to win this E46 when it's all done, I'll drop the playlist down below. Watch the series, check out the giveaway form that's in the description of those videos, fill it out with your information, and you'll have a chance to win this car once we're done with the restoration. Also, if you'd like to support me on this content creation journey and help me continue to do this thing full time and create content for you guys, you can become a member of my channel, on my YouTube channel. You can support me on Patreon, or you can just subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop a comment down below with your favorite part, and share it with your friends and family. I hope you enjoyed, or I hope you learned something new. And as always, folks, I'll see you on my next day off. Cheers.